Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell, because tonight's story will keep you up all night. Grab a drink, dim the lights, and let's dive into a creepy tale about Caleb, a worker on an offshore rig where the ocean hides something terrifying, and strange rules are the only thing keeping it at bay. Ready? Let's go. I never thought I'd end up out here, stuck on a rusting oil rig in the middle of the Pacific. I'm Caleb Tran, 28, a guy who used to fix cars and dream of an easy life, but debt piled up fast after my brother, Nate, died. In a wreck 2 years ago, a wreck I should have prevented. I was driving, too tired, and missed a turn. His voice still haunts me, telling me to keep going, but I'm barely hanging on. The job on Triton 7 was my last shot to pay off what I owed, to make something right. They said it was good money, long shifts, nothing I couldn't handle. Nobody mentioned the ocean whispering your name. I got to the rig by chopper, the sea below black and endless, stretching forever. Triton 7 was a beast of steel, its towers creaking, its lights flickering against the waves. The crew was small, maybe 20 guys, all rough around the edges, their eyes tired, like they'd seen too much. My first shift started at dusk, the sky heavy with clouds, the air salty and cold. The manager, Burke, met me in the control room, his face lined, his voice gruff. "Do your job, follow the rules, and don't ask questions," he said, handing me a crumpled list typed on yellowed paper. I figured it'd be standard stuff: wear a helmet, check the valves. I was wrong. The rules were weird. Don't look at the sea after midnight. No matter what you hear, never answer voices calling from the water. Lock your bunk door when a storm hits, and don't open it until it passes. If you see figures in the fog, ignore them. I laughed, thinking it was some hazing for the new guy, but Burke's stare was ice. "Memorize them, kid," he said, then walked off, his boots echoing on the metal floor. I stuffed the list in my pocket, my stomach uneasy, and started my shift, checking pipes and gauges under the rig's dim lights. The ocean was loud, waves crashing against the steel legs, a constant growl that made my skin crawl. I kept busy, trying not to think about Nate, about the debt, about how alone I felt out here. Around 10 p.m., I was on the lower deck, the wind biting my face, when I heard it, a whisper, faint but clear, coming from the water. "Caleb." My heart stopped. It sounded like Nate, his voice soft, like when we were kids. I leaned over the railing, my flashlight shaking, but the sea was just waves, black and churning. The rules flashed in my mind: never answer, voices, and I stepped back, my hands sweaty despite the cold. The whisper came again, louder: "Caleb, help me." I clamped my mouth shut, my pulse racing, and hurried inside, the steel door slamming behind me in the mess hall. I found Hank, an older worker with a grey beard and scars on his knuckles. He was nursing a coffee, his eyes fixed on the table. "Heard something, didn't you?" he said, not looking up. I nodded, my throat tight, and told him about the voice. He sighed, his voice low. "The sea calls, kid. It knows your name. Your pain, ignore it, or you're gone, like the others." He talked about guys who'd vanished, jumped into the water, or just disappeared after a storm. "Follow the rules," he said, "or the sea takes you." I didn't sleep much that night, locked in my bunk, the rules crumpled in my fist. The whispers faded, but the waves kept roaring. And I swore I saw something outside my porthole, a shadow, huge and blurred, moving under the water. I told myself it was the rig's lights, a trick of the dark, but my gut said otherwise. Around 2 a.m, the lights flickered, the rig groaning like it was alive. I checked the rules again, my hands shaking, and noticed a new one scrawled at the bottom in pen. If the waves scream your name, run. I froze, my breath catching, the air colder now, like something was watching. I got up, my boots heavy, and checked the bunk door locked, like the rules said. But the whispers were back. Not just Nate's voice, but others, a chorus from the sea, calling, "Caleb, come down." My chest tightened, memories of Nate's crash flooding back, the screech of tires, his last breath, my fault. I gripped the door handle, fighting the urge to answer, to see if it was really him. The rig shook, a low hum rising, and I heard it, waves crashing, louder, forming words. Caleb, Caleb, Caleb. The rules burned in my mind, drun, but where could I go? The sea was everywhere, and Triton 7 was no safe haven. The lights flickered again, the hum growing, and I knew something was out there, something the rules were trying to keep away. My brother's voice called louder, "Caleb, save me," and the waves screamed my name, a howl that shook the walls. I grabbed my flashlight, my heart pounding, and ran for the control room, the rules in my pocket. The sea's call chasing me through the steel corridors. The waves screamed my name, a howl that shook Triton 7's steel corridors. My brother's voice weaving through, "Caleb, save me." I ran toward the control room, my flashlight beam bouncing, the rules crumpled in my pocket. The rig's lights flickered, the hum growing louder, like the ocean was alive and angry. My heart pounded, guilt over Nate's death, my fault, my failure mixing with raw fear. The sea was calling, and the rules were all I had, but they felt like a trap, not a shield. I needed to know what was out there, even if it meant facing the thing that knew my name. The control room was a mess of blinking screens and buzzing radios, its windows black with the night sea. I locked the door, my hands shaking, the waves still chanting, "Caleb, Caleb." The rules burned in my mind, don't answer voices. Run if the waves scream, but I was cornered, the rig a cage surrounded by water. My flashlight caught a stack of old logbooks on a shelf, their covers warped from salt air. I grabbed one, desperate for answers, and flipped through it, my breath ragged. The pages were filled with reports. 1978, worker heard voices, jumped overboard. 1993, shadow seen in storm, crewman missing. 2005, waves called names, rig shook. My stomach twisted. Triton 7 wasn't just a rig, it was haunted. The logbook mentioned the callers, spirits of workers the sea had claimed, luring the living to join them. My thoughts spun to Nate, his voice so clear in the whispers, begging for help. Was he one of them, or was the sea using him to get me? I'd failed him once, fallen asleep at the wheel, let him die. The guilt was a knife, and the ocean knew it, twisting it deeper. The radio crackled, Burke's voice cutting through. "Tran, what are you doing? You heard it, didn't you?" His tone was sharp, but it wavered, like he was scared too. "Don't answer, kid. Follow the rules." The line went dead, and the lights flickered again, the hum a growl. I couldn't stay put. The waves were louder, the whispers a chorus, not just Nate's voice but others, pleading, "Come down, Caleb." I checked the rules again, my hands sweaty, and saw another scrawled note. Don't look at the sea after midnight. It was past 2 a.m. now, and I'd already broken that one, leaning over the railing earlier, seeing nothing but waves. Or had I? That shadow under the water, huge and blurred, wasn't my imagination. I needed to know, needed to prove I wasn't losing it, that I could face this and not fail again. I grabbed my flashlight and headed for the lower deck, the rig's corridors tilting as the waves slammed harder. The air was cold, the steel walls sweating, and every step felt like walking into a trap. The rules said not to look, but I had to see, had to know if Nate was really out there. I reached the deck, the wind howling, salt spray stinging my face. The sea was a black void, waves crashing like fists, and I leaned over the railing, my flashlight shaking. Nate, I whispered, breaking the rule never answer voices. The whispers surged, a scream now. Caleb, help me. A shape broke the surface. A figure floating, its face blurred but familiar. Nate's eyes, his jaw soaked and pale. My heart lurched, my hands gripping the railing, the urge to jump overwhelming. I'm sorry, I choked, tears mixing with the spray. The figure reached out, its hand grey and dripping, and the waves roared my name, louder, angrier. I stumbled back, my flashlight dropping, its beams spinning across the deck. The figure vanished, but the shadow was there, under the water, bigger. Now, its edges pulsing like a living thing. Footsteps clanged behind me, heavy and fast. I spun, expecting Burke, but it was Hank, his face pale, his eyes wide. You idiot, he yelled, grabbing my arm, pulling me inside. You looked, didn't you? You answered. I tried to explain, but he shoved me into a stairwell, slamming the door. The callers know you now, he said, his voice low. They'll keep coming till you're theirs. He dragged me to the mess hall, the rig shaking, the lights dimming. The waves were a chant, my name a curse, and I felt it. The sea wanted me. And I'd just opened the door. Hank locked the mess hall door, his hands trembling, and handed me a cup of cold coffee. You're lucky I saw you, he said, last. Guy who answered jumped. Never found him. I clutched the rules, my mind racing, the logbook's words burning, the caller's lure the living. Nate's face in the water, his voice. It wasn't him, couldn't be. But the guilt, the need to make it right, made me want to believe. I'd failed him, and now the sea was using it, twisting my pain into a trap. The rig groaned, a low moan. That made the walls shudder. Hank's radio buzzed, Burke's voice distorted, like it was underwater. Tran, you broke the rules. Don't do it again. The line cut off, and Hank cursed, his eyes darting to the porthole. I followed his gaze, my stomach dropping. Outside, in the fog, a figure stood on the deck, tall and blurred, its head tilted like it was listening. The rules said to ignore it, but my hands shook, the whispers louder. Caleb, come. The lights flickered, the hum spiking, and the figure moved, its shape melting into the fog. Hank grabbed my arm, his voice urgent. We need to check the signal tower. If the sea's awake, we gotta call for help. I nodded, my throat tight, and followed him, the rules in my pocket, the logbook's warnings in my head. The waves screamed my name, the shadow under the water growing, its edges sharper now, like it was reaching for the rig. I'd broken the rules, and something was coming, something the ocean had held for years, waiting for someone like me. The shadow under the water pulsed, its edges reaching for Triton 7, as Hank and I ran for the signal tower, the waves screaming my name. The rig's corridors were a maze of flickering lights and creaking steel. The ocean's roar shaking the walls. My flashlight bounced in my hand, the rules heavy in my pocket. My guilt over Nate's death, a weight that wouldn't quit. I'd broken the rules, looked at the sea, answered the voices in. Now something was awake, something the ocean had kept hidden. My heart pounded, fear and failure pushing me forward. Nate's voice in my head, "Save me, Caleb." We reached the tower's base, a rusted ladder leading up to the signal room. The wind howled outside, waves slamming the rig's legs, the hum a deep growl that made my teeth ache. Hank climbed first, his boots slipping on the wet rungs, cursing under his breath. "Move it, kid," he yelled, his voice barely cutting through the storm. I followed, my hands numb, the rules burning in my mind. Don't answer voices, ignore figures in fog. I'd already seen Nate's face in the water, felt the sea's pull. What else was coming? The signal room was cramped, its radio spitting. Static, its windows rattling. Hank fiddled with the controls, his hands shaky, trying to send a distress call. "Storm's messing with the signal," he muttered, glancing at the black sea outside. I clutched the logbook I'd grabbed from the control room, its pages full of warnings about the callers. One entry stuck with me, from 1970. The sea took. The rig voices led them down. The guide woke. The guide was that the shadow, the thing with Nate's face. My stomach twisted, guilt clawing at me. I'd failed Nate, and now the sea was using him to drag me under. Lightning cracked, lighting up the ocean, and I saw it a massive shape under the waves, bigger than the rig, its edges blurred but solid. Eyes glowing red in the dark. I froze, my breath catching, the rules screaming. Don't look at the sea. But I couldn't look away. The shape moved, slow and deliberate, circling Triton 7 like a predator. Hank grabbed my shoulder, his voice sharp. "Don't stare, kid, that's how it gets you." He shoved me toward the radio, but the static surged, a voice breaking through. "Caleb, help me." Nate's voice, clear as day, begging. I stumbled back, my hands shaking, the logbook falling open. "That's my brother," I whispered, breaking. The rule never answer voices. The radio screamed, the lights flickering, and the waves roared my name, louder, angrier. Hank slapped the radio off, his face pale. "You answered again, you idiot," he yelled. "The guide's awake now, and it's got your scent." He grabbed a flare gun from a locker, his hands trembling. "We need to keep the lights on. If they go out in a storm, it comes closer." The rig shook, a wave crashing over the deck, water seeping under the door. The hum spiked, the air cold and heavy, like something was pressing down. I grabbed the logbook, flipping through it, desperate for answers. A page mentioned a rule the list hadn't included. Keep the rig's beacon lit during a storm, or the guide rises. My heart sank. The beacon was up top, exposed to the storm, and the lights were already failing. Hank saw my face and nodded, his voice grim. "We gotta climb, kid. No beacon, no chance." We ran for the ladder, the storm raging, waves clawing at the rig. The deck was slick, wind tearing at my jacket, lightning flashing. I saw him, then Nate, standing on the edge, soaked, his eyes white, his hand reaching. "Caleb, come down," he said, his voice not his, too deep, too wrong. The rules burned. Ignore figures in fog. But it was Nate, my brother, the one I'd failed. I stepped toward him, my voice breaking. "I'm sorry, Nate." Hank yanked me back, his grip bruising. "It ain't him," he shouted, dragging me. To the beacon tower we climbed, the ladder swaying, waves crashing below. The beacon was dim, its bulb flickering, the hum deafening. Hank pried open the control box, cursing as sparks flew, while I held the flare gun, my hands shaking. Lightning lit the sea again, the shadow closer now, its red eyes locked on us, its shape massive, like a mountain under the water. The whispers surged, not just Nate's voice, but dozens, a chorus of the dead. "Caleb, join us." My head throbbed, guilt and fear choking me, the urge to jump growing. To make it right, Hank got the beacon blazing, its light cutting through the storm, and the shadow sank, its eyes fading. The whispers dulled, the waves quieter, but the rig still shook, the hum a low pulse. We slid down the ladder, soaked and gasping, and ran for the bunk area, locking ourselves in. Hank collapsed on a cot, his face grey. "You gotta stop breaking." "The rules," he said, his voice hoarse. "The guide's awake, and it wants you." I clutched the logbook, my hands cold, the rules in my pocket heavier, like they were alive. The storm raged outside, waves slamming, but the bunk was quiet, the lights steady for now. I opened the logbook, my fingers trembling, and found a new entry, handwritten, fresh. "The guide sees you now. Don't trust the voices, even his." My heart stopped. Nate's voice, his face, it wasn't him. The sea had taken him, twisted him into a lure. I'd answered, looked, broken every rule, and now the shadow was closer, its red eyes burned into my mind. The bunk door rattled, a soft scratching sound, like nails on steel, and I knew we weren't safe, not anymore. The bunk door rattled, a sharp scratching slicing through the storm's howl, the whispers creeping back. "Caleb, join us." I clutched the logbook, my flashlight trembling, the rules heavy in my pocket. Triton 7's steel walls groaned, the ocean's hum a pulse that shook my bones. My guilt over Nate's death, my fault, my failure mixed with a new panic. I'd broken the rules, answered the voices, looked at the sea, and now the guide, that red-eyed shadow, was closer, its hunger real. Hank sat on the cot, his face pale, his eyes fixed on the door. "It's awake," he whispered, "and it's got your name." The storm raged outside, waves crashing like thunder, the rig tilting under the sea's weight. I checked the rules, my hands sweaty, the paper colder now, like it was part of the ocean. New rules had appeared, scrawled in wet ink that smeared under my thumb. "Don't walk alone in the fog. Never touch the water at night. If you see red eyes, run." My stomach dropped. The guide was changing the game, and I'd already messed up scene. Nate's face answered his voice, stared at the shadow's eyes in the storm. The rig felt smaller, the sea bigger, like it was swallowing us whole. The scratching stopped, but the whispers grew, Nate's voice louder. "Caleb, come down." Hank grabbed his radio, his voice low. "We need Burke. He's been here longest, knows." "The guide," he called, but the static screamed. A distorted laugh, breaking through, not Burke's voice. "Caleb, you're mine." Hank dropped the radio, its crackle dying, the lights flickering. My heart raced, the logbook's warning burning. "The guide sees you now." I'd woken it, let it in, and now it wasn't just Nate's voice. It was something older, hungrier, using my guilt to pull me under. I couldn't sit still. The rules were failing, the rig was a trap, and Nate's voice was a knife in my chest. I grabbed my flashlight and the logbook, my hands shaking. "I'm finding Burke," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Hank grabbed my arm, his grip tight. "Don't go alone, kid. Rule says so." But I was done waiting, done letting fear win. I'd failed Nate, failed myself, and I wasn't losing anyone else to this sea. Hank cursed but followed, his flare gun tucked in his belt. The storm's roar chasing us. The corridors were dark, the lights dimming, water seeping through cracks in the steel. The hum was a growl, the air cold and sour, like rotting fish. We reached the control room, its door ajar, papers scattered across the floor. Burke was there, hunched over a console, his back to us, muttering words I couldn't catch. "Burke," I called, breaking the silence. He turned, his eyes flashing red for a second, then normal, his face grey. "You broke the rules, Tran," he said, his voice low, cracked, like something else was speaking. "The guide's awake, and it's on you." I stepped back, my flashlight shaking, the logbook heavy in my hand. "What is it?" I asked, my voice trembling. "What's the guide?" Burke laughed, a sound that wasn't his, and pointed to the window. The sea was black, but the shadow was there, closer, its red eyes glowing, its shape massive, coiling under the waves. "It's the sea's heart," he said. "Workers died here, long ago. The ocean kept them, made them its own. You called it, and now it wants you." My throat tightened, Nate's voice echoing. "Caleb, help me." Hank raised the flare gun, his hands steady. "Back off, Burke, you're not right." Burke's eyes flickered red again, and he lunged, faster than he should have, grabbing my wrist, his grip icewood cowed. "You can't run," he hissed, his breath sour. I yanked free, my flashlight falling, its beams spinning across the room. The logbook mentioned a 1970 collapse, workers trapped, their souls bound to the sea. Was Burke one of them, or just its pawn? I didn't know, but his eyes, his voice, they weren't human anymore. The rig shook, a wave crashing over the deck, water flooding the corridor. The whispers screamed, "Caleb, come." I ran, Hank behind me, Burke's laughter chasing us. The rules said not to touch the water, but it was everywhere, soaking my boots, burning my skin like acid. A black mark spread on my hand, cold and stinging, like the sea was claiming me. We reached the mess hall, slamming the door, but the water followed. Pooling under the frame, the hum deafening. Hank barricaded the door with a table, his face grim. "We're screwed, kid. The guide's got Burke, and you're next." I opened the logbook, my hands trembling, searching for something to stop this. A page described the guide's spirit. Born from the 1970 collapse, a mass of lost workers, hungry for the living. It lures with guilt, it binds with water. My mark burned, the whispers louder, Nate's voice pleading, "Save me." I'd failed him, and the sea knew, using his voice to break me. But I wasn't giving in, not yet. I'd lost everything, my brother, my dreams, but I could still fight. Could still keep Hank alive. The mess hall's porthole cracked, water spraying, the shadow's red eyes glowing outside. The rules were useless now, but Hank grabbed a bag of salt from the kitchen, muttering about an old trick. "Salt keeps it out," he said, pouring a circle around us. The whispers dulled, the marks burn easing, but the rig shook harder, the sea roaring my name. Burke's voice came through the door, not his, deeper. "Caleb, open the door." The handle rattled, the water rising, and I knew the guide was closer, its eyes waiting, its hunger endless. Hank handed me the flare gun, his voice urgent. "We need the signal tower again." Call for help, or we're done. I nodded, my heart pounding, the logbook tucked in my jacket, the rules a weight I couldn't shake. The sea was alive, the guide was awake, and I'd brought it here, my guilt, a beacon. The door buckled, water pouring in, the shadow's eyes brighter, and I ran, Hank behind me, the rig collapsing under the sea's wrath. The guide's voice a vow, you're mine. Water poured through the buckling mess hall door, the shadow's red eyes blazing outside, the waves roaring my name. I gripped the flare gun, the logbook soaked in my jacket, the black mark on my hand burning like ice. Triton 7 was falling apart, its steel groaning under the storm's weight, the ocean's hum a scream that shook my core. Hank ran beside me, his face grim. The rules, useless no. Don't touch the water. Run if you see red eyes. I'd broken them all, woken the guide. And my guilt over Nate's death was a chain pulling me under. But I wasn't done fighting, not for Hank. Not for the chance to make something right. We sprinted for the signal tower, the corridors flooded, lights flickering, the sea clawing through cracks in the steel. My boots slipped, the black mark spreading. Up my wrist, cold and heavy, like the ocean was inside me. The whispers surged, Nate's voice louder, pleading, Caleb, save me. It wasn't him. I knew that now the logbook had called the guide a spirit of lost workers, using my pain to lure me. But knowing didn't stop the guilt, the ache of failing him, the crash that took him because I wasn't enough. The tower's ladder was slick, waves crashing below, lightning tearing the sky. Hank climbed first, his flare gun tucked away, shouting, over the wind, move, kid. We got a call for help. I followed, my hands numb, the mark pulsing with every step. The signal room was a wreck, radios hissing, windows rattling, water pooling on the floor. Hank slammed the door, barricading it with a chair, his breath ragged. Try the radio, he said, pointing to a console. I'll check the backup. I nodded, my heart pounding, the whispers screaming, Caleb, come down. The radio spit static, my hands shaking as I turned dials. Mayday, this is Triton 7, we need help. I yelled, but the static surged, a voice breaking through not human, deep and wet. Caleb, you're mine. I froze, the mark burning, the lights dimming. Outside, the shadow was closer, its red eyes huge, its form a mass of twisting shapes, faces, hands, bodies woven into a nightmare under the waves. The logbook had called it the guide, born from the 1970 collapse, a hunger that fed on guilt. My guilt. Nate's death was my fault, and the sea was collecting. Hank cursed, slamming the backup radio. It's jammed. The storm wall, that thing. He grabbed a can of fuel from a locker, his eyes wild. We burn a signal, make MC us. I nodded, clutching the flare gun, but the door rattled, water spraying through, the shadows, eyes glowing brighter. The whispers turned to screams, Nate's voice joined by others, a chorus of the dead. Join us. My head throbbed, visions flashing Nate's face in the wreck, blood on the wheel, my fault. I shook it off, my hands trembling, and followed Hank to the beacon platform. The storm was a monster, waves towering, the rig tilting. We reached the beacon, its light flickering, the hum deafening. Hank poured fuel around it, his hands slipping, while I held the flare gun, my mark searing. Lightning lit the sea, and I saw the guide, fully hundreds of faces, workers from decades past, their mouths open, eyes red, Nate's face among them, twisted, wrong. It's not you, I whispered. Breaking the rule, never answer voices. The guide roared, the waves surging, a hand of water grabbing the rig. Metal screaming as it bent. Hank lit the fuel, flames flaring, the beacon blazing through the storm. The guide's eyes dimmed, its form sinking, the whispers fading. But the rig shook harder, a leg buckling, water flooding the deck. Hank grabbed my arm, his voice urgent. We gotta get to the lifeboats now. We ran, the flames behind us, the sea clawing, the mark on my hand spreading, black veins crawling up my arm. The rules were gone, the rig was dying, and the guide wasn't stopping, it was waiting, patient, endless. We reached the lifeboat station, waves crashing over the railing, the boat swinging wildly. Hank pried one loose, his hands bleeding, but a figure appeared. Burke, his eyes fully red, his face slack, like a puppet. You can't leave, he said, his voice the guide's, deep and wet. He lunged, grabbing Hank, pulling him toward the edge. I fired the flare gun, the shot missing, bursting in the sky. Hank elbowed free, but Burke turned to me, his red eyes burning. Caleb, the sea wants you, he said, stepping closer, water dripping from his mouth. I swung the logbook, hitting his face, and ran, Hank behind me. The lifeboat was loose, but the waves were alive, hands of water grabbing, the shadow rising. Again, its eyes everywhere. The logbook had mentioned salt, a way to push the guide back, and I remembered the bag in the mess hall. Salt, I yelled, sprinting back, the rig collapsing, steel snapping. Hank followed, his flare gun empty, his face grey. The mess hall was flooded, the salt bag soaked but heavy. I poured it round us, the marks burn easing, the whispers quieter, but Burke's footsteps echoed, his voice a growl. Caleb, mine. The rig tilted, water rushing, the shadow's eyes blazing through the porthole. Hank grabbed my shoulder, his voice hoarse. Lifeboat, now, or we're dead. I clutched the logbook, the salt bag, my heart pounding. The guide was awake, the sea was its weapon, and my guilt was its key. I'd failed Nate, but I wouldn't fail Hank, wouldn't let. The ocean wind, the rig screamed, a leg snapping, and we ran, the shadow chasing, its red eyes a vow, you'll never leave. The rig screamed, steel snapping as waves tore at Triton 7, the shadow's red eyes blazing through the flood. I clutched the soaked salt bag, the logbook heavy in my jacket, the black mark on my arm burning like frostbite. Hank ran beside me, his face grey, the lifeboat our only shot as the guide's whispers roared. Caleb, mine. My guilt over Nate's death, my fault, the crash I caused, drove me forward, but fear clawed at my chest. The rules were dead, don't touch the water. Run if you see red eyes, and I'd broken them all, waking a monster that wanted me. I wasn't letting it take Hank, wasn't giving up. Not yet. We reached the lifeboat station, waves crashing over the deck, the boat swinging wildly on its cables. The storm was a beast, lightning cracking, the rig tilting as another leg buckled. Hank pried at the cables, his hands bleeding, cursing the salt air that rusted everything. I poured salt in a shaky circle around us, the logbook's words echoing. Salt pushes the guide back, but blood seals it. The mark on my arm pulsed, black veins crawling higher, the whispers louder, Nate's voice pleading, Caleb, come down. It wasn't him, but the guilt made it feel real, like I could still save him. Footsteps splashed behind us, heavy and wrong. Burke staggered onto the deck, his eyes glowing red. water pouring from his mouth, his voice the guide's. You can't leave, Caleb. He moved too fast, grabbing Hank's arm, pulling him toward the edge. I swung the salt bag, hitting Burke's face, salt spraying. He screamed, a sound like tearing metal, his eyes dimming, but he didn't fall. Hank broke free, gasping, and we shoved the lifeboat loose, its cables snapping. The boat hit the water, waves grabbing it. But Burke lunged again, his hands cold, his red eyes locked on me. I threw salt in his face, the mark on my arm searing, and kicked him back, my boots slipping. Go, I yelled to Hank, climbing into the boat. He jumped in, the waves tossing us, the rig collapsing behind. Steel towers fell, sparks flying, the shadow rising, its red eyes everywhere. Faces of dead workers twisting inside it. Nate's among them, his mouth open, screaming. The whispers were a chorus, not just Nate, but dozens. Stay, Caleb. My heart pounded, guilt choking me. But I grabbed the oars, rowing against the storm, Hank steering, his hands shaking. The lifeboat rocked, waves like hands pulling us back. The logbook was soaked, but I remembered the ritual salt and blood. I pulled a knife from my pocket, my hands trembling, and cut my palm, blood mixing with salt on the boat's floor. Stay back, I shouted, breaking the rule never answer voices. The whispers screamed, the shadow surging, its red eyes blazing. But the salt circle glowed faintly, the marks burn easing. The guide sank, its eyes dimming, the waves calming for a moment. Hank stared, his voice hoarse. You're crazy, kid, but it worked. We rode the rig, a burning wreck behind us, its lights dying. The storm raged, lightning showing the shadow still there, smaller but moving, trailing us. My hand bled, the mark spreading, black veins reaching my elbow. The logbook had warned the guide fed on guilt, and mine was endless. Nate's crash, my failure, my fault. I'd pushed it back, but it wasn't gone. Hank checked the radio, its static dead, his face grim. No signal, no land, we're drifting. My stomach sank. The sea was endless, the guide patient, and we were alone. Hours passed, the storm easing, the sea black and still. My arm throbbed, the mark alive, like the ocean was inside me. Hank slumped against the boat's edge, his eyes hollow. You saw Burke, he said, his voice low. He's been here since 70, survived the collapse. The guide got him then, made him its eyes. I nodded, the logbook's entries flashing workers lost, souls bound to the sea. Burke wasn't human anymore, and I wondered if I was next. The mark a claim I couldn't shake. The whispers returned, faint but sharp. Caleb, you're mine. I gripped the oars, my blood mixing with salt, the mark burning. A shape broke the water, a figure, Nate's face, pale and wrong, his eyes white, reaching. I froze, guilt flooding back, the urge to jump overwhelming. Hank grabbed my shoulder, his voice urgent. Don't look, kid, row. I shook it off, rowing harder, the figure sinking, but the shadow was there. Its red eyes glowing, closer now, like it was toying with us. The lifeboat's hull scraped something, a jolt that made us lurch. Hank shone his flashlight, his face paling under the water. Shapes moved, hands, faces, bodies, all part of the guide, circling us. The logbook had mentioned a safe zone, a buoy with salt wards, miles out. We gotta find it, I said, my voice cracking. Hank nodded, his hands trembling, but the sea was shifting, fog rolling in, the rules echoing. Don't walk alone in fog. We weren't walking, but the fog was thick, figures forming inside it. Nate's voice louder. "Caleb, save me." I poured more salt, my blood dripping, the circle glowing again. The figures faded, the shadows' eyes dimming, but the fog thickened. The sea, a mirror reflecting our boat and something else, a rig, not Triton 7, older, broken. Its steel twisted under the waves. My heart stopped. The 1970 collapse, the logbooks warning it was here, a ghost rig, the guide's home. The whispers screamed, the mark burned, and I knew we weren't free. The sea was a trap, the guide was waiting, and my guilt was its key. Hank pointed, his voice shaking. There, the buoy. A faint light blinked in the fog, salt wards glowing on its base. We rode, the shadow chasing, its red eyes blazing, the ghost rig clearer now, its steel groaning under the water. The lifeboat shook, hands of water grabbing. Nate's voice a howl. "Stay, Caleb." I poured the last salt, my blood soaking the boat, and rowed, the buoy closer, the shadow's eyes everywhere, its hunger endless. We weren't safe, not yet, and the guide wasn't done. The ghost rig loomed under the waves, its twisted steel groaning, the shadow's red eyes blazing as we rowed for the buoy. My arm burned, the black mark's veins crawling past my elbow, the soaked logbook heavy in my jacket. Hank gripped the lifeboat's edge, his face pale, the fog thick with figures, Nate's face among them, pale and wrong, whispering, "Caleb, stay." My guilt over his death, the crash I caused, was a chain, but I kept rowing. The salt circle glowing faintly, my blood mixing with it. The guide was close, its hunger endless, and Triton 7 was gone, swallowed by the sea I'd woken. I wasn't letting it take us, not after everything. The buoy's light blinked, its salt wards glowing, a faint hope in the Black Sea. Waves clawed at the lifeboat, hands of water grabbing, the whispers a scream. "Caleb, mine." My hand bled, the mark pulsing. Nate's voice louder, pleading, "Save me." It wasn't him, but the guilt made it real. The crash, flashing tires, screeching, his blood, my fault. I poured the last salt, my knife cut deeper, blood soaking the boat's floor. The circle flared, the shadow's eyes dimming, its face of workers, Nate included, fading into the fog. Hank rowed, his hands trembling, his voice hoarse. "Keep it up, kid. We're almost there." We hit the buoy, its steel cold, salt wards etched deep, glowing like embers. I tied the boat, my hands slipping, the mark searing. The fog parted, the sea still for a moment, the whispers quiet. Hank collapsed, his breath ragged. "You did it," he said, his eyes hollow. The wards held it back, but the mark on my arm burned, black veins spreading, and I felt the guide, waiting, patient. Its red eyes gone, but not forgotten. The logbook had said salt and blood could push it back, but not forever. My guilt was its anchor, and I'd fed it too much. A light cut through the fog, a rescue ship, its horn low and steady. My heart leaped, relief flooding, but the mark pulsed, a warning. The ship pulled close, its crew shouting, throwing lines. We climbed aboard, soaked and shaking, the buoy's wards fading behind us. The captain, a grizzled guy named Ruiz, wrapped us in blankets, his eyes sharp. "You're from Triton 7, he asked. I nodded, my throat tight, and told him everything, the rules, the voices, the guide. I showed him the logbook, its pages warped. Entries about the 1970 collapse, the guides. Birth. Ruiz listened, his face grim. "That rig's cursed," he said. "Always was." The ship took us to shore, the sea calm but heavy, like it was watching. My arm throbbed, the mark alive, black veins under my skin. Hank stayed quiet, his eyes distant, like he'd seen too much. At the port, medics checked us, but the mark wouldn't fade, cold and stinging, like the sea was still inside me. I quit the job that day, left a voicemail for the company, got no reply. The news hit a month later. Triton 7 was gone, crushed by a freak storm, no survivors. Burke, Lena, the others, all lost. I saw their faces in my dreams, mixed with Nate's, all part of the guide now, calling me back. I moved inland, a small town in Oregon, far from the ocean. The logbook went into a safe, its pages heavier, like they were growing. I tried to forget, took a job fixing cars again, but the mark stayed, its veins spreading, a reminder of what I'd faced. I told a co-worker once, showed him the logbook, but he laughed, called it a ghost story. I didn't push it. Nobody believed me, but I knew the truth. The sea had let me go, but not for free. The whispers were gone, but the hum lingered, faint in my chest. Like Triton's Faven's pulse had followed me. Nights were rough. I'd lie awake, the mark burning, dreams pulling me back to the rig waves crashing. Nate's face in the water, the guide's red eyes. I'd check the safe, the logbook untouched, but the mark glowed sometimes, faint and cold, like the sea was calling. I avoided water, skipped showers some days, the mark stinging under the spray. My guilt never left Nate's death, the crash. My failure, I'd let him down, and now the sea had used it, turned his voice into a trap. The rules had saved me, then failed me, and the guide was still out there, waiting. I wanted to believe it was over, that the salt and blood had pushed it back for good, but Ruiz's words stuck, that rig's cursed. The mark was proof, a debt I couldn't pay. I'd never go near the ocean again, never trust the quiet, never forget the faces in the waves. Hank sent a letter once, short and shaky. "Stay away from water, kid. It remembers you." I burned it, but the mark glowed that night, brighter. The hum louder, like the sea was closer than I thought. I'd escaped Triton 7, but the guide wasn't done, and deep down, I knew it was still watching. The small town in Oregon was supposed to be my sanctuary. Its pine trees and quiet streets, a shield against the ocean's reach. But a year after escaping Triton 7, I was still a mess. My apartment was a cluttered box, tools scattered from my mechanic job, the logbook locked in a safe under my bed. The black mark on my arm hadn't faded, its veins curling past my elbow, cold and stinging. A reminder of the rules I'd broken, the sea I'd woken. My guilt over Nate's death. Crash I caused. My failure kept me up, his voice in my dreams. "Caleb, save me." The guide was out there, and I wasn't free. I tried to move on. Fixed cars, forced smiles for customers, but the mark burned some nights, the hum from Triton 7 echoing in my chest. I saw a therapist once, told her about the rig, the whispers. The guide, I showed her the logbook, its warped pages of rules and warnings, the 1970 collapse that birthed a monster. She called it PTSD, blamed my grief over Nate, offered pills I didn't take. Pills wouldn't stop the cold spots in my room, the faint splash of waves I heard in the dark, like the sea had followed me inland. I couldn't let it go. The logbooks. Names workers lost to the guide, their souls trapped haunted me. I dug online, late nights with cheap coffee, searching for Triton 7's history. Old maritime records confirmed the 1970 collapse. A rig crushed by a freak storm, dozens dead, their bodies never found. A survivor's account, buried in a forum, chilled me. The sea took them, made them its own. The guide leads the lost, feeds on guilt. My guilt was endless. Nate's crash a wound the sea had torn open, and the mark was proof I'd been claimed. The more I read, the worse it got. Triton 7 wasn't the first. The rigs, ships, even coastal towns had stories of voices in the waves, red eyes in storms. The guide wasn't just Triton 7's curse. It was the oceans, a hunger older than the rigs, binding souls like Nate's, using their voices to lure the living. I found a grainy photo from 1970, workers on Triton 7's deck, Burke among them, his eyes already wrong, like the guide had him even then. My hands shook, the mark burning, the hum louder. Like the sea knew I was looking. I tried to destroy the logbook, to cut ties with the ocean. I stood over a fire pit, matches ready, but the pages wouldn't burn, the paper cold, like it was soaked in salt water. The mark glowed, the hum spiking, Nate's voice whispering, "Caleb, come back." I locked the logbook in the safe, doubled my door, but the dreams got worse. Triton 7 underwater, its steel twisted, Nate standing among shadows, his eyes red, reaching. I'd wake, gasping, the mark searing, its veins spreading, a map of the sea on my skin. Nights were the hardest. I'd lie awake, the town's silence no match for the rig's hum. Shadows moved in my room, faint and blurred, like figures in fog. I'd check the safe, the logbook untouched, but the mark pulsed, cold and alive, like the guide was close. I stopped using mirrors, their glass too much like water, the mark reflecting back, glowing faintly. My co-workers noticed my shakes, my flinches at rain, but I blamed long hours. I wasn't sleeping, not really. Every drip was waves, every gust was the guide's breath. I kept the safe locked, checked it daily, the logbook heavier, like it was growing. I avoided water, drank from bottles, showered fast, the mark stinging under the spray. My guilt was a weight. Nate, the crash, the rigs, crew, all gone because I'd broken the rules, answered the voices. I tried to live normally, to be the guy who laughed at scary movies, who had plans. But Triton 7 had marked me, changed me. The rules, the whispers, the mark, they were a debt I couldn't pay, a truth I couldn't bury. Some days I'd stare out my window, the town's lights flickering like the rigs, and feel the sea closer, a chill in the air, a hum in my bones. I'd check the safe, the logbook still there, the mark glowing brighter, like it was calling. I didn't answer, didn't dare, but the dreams grew sharper. Nate's face in the waves, the guide's red eyes, a rig underwater, pulling me down. I swore I'd never go near the ocean again, never trust the quiet, never forget the rules or the faces in the sea. I live with it now, the hum, the mark, the dreams. I'm not the guy who dreamed of an easy life, who thought he could outrun his failures. I'm the guy who checks his locks, who jumps at rain, who knows the sea is still out there, waiting. The guide's voice is my shadow, its vow my truth. You'll come back. I don't want to believe it, but some nights, when the town's too quiet, I hear waves, feel the mark burn, and know the ocean hasn't forgotten me. Hey everyone, that's the end of Caleb's story. What would you do on that rig? Follow the rules, or face the sea? Drop your thoughts in the comments. hit that like button and subscribe for more creepy tales. If you've got your own spooky story, share it below, we love hearing them. Stay safe out there, and maybe stay away from the ocean. Stay spooky,